I have an especially difficult video to talk about with you today, but it's a good one. I had to kill my dog last week, so let's talk about that. So first, I'm going to tell you everything that happened, and then afterwards I'll tell you all the revelations and everything that I learned from this experience. Oh, and as I talk, you'll see pictures of him. So I had a German Shepherd. He was almost 12. He was pretty much falling apart. His vision was going, his hearing was going. Whenever I'd have to feed him, I'd have to find him in the back and literally like tap him because he couldn't hear me. And he started eating weird, almost like a gator in a weird way. He'd eat with like his molars exclusively. So he'd make a huge mess every time he'd finish eating. Well, I could see what was happening. A part of me didn't want to accept that it was happening. Oh, so the biggest parts, the biggest thing that was happening with his health is back in January or February, sometime at the beginning of the year, he had a really bad ear infection, and that's pretty common for German Shepherds. And he's had ear infections before, but this one was the worst one he's ever had. And then recently, he started getting a really bad skin infection, which again is also common for that breed, but this time it was really bad. So all of those things in conjunction made me decide to euthanize him. So pretty much my main concern was his skin infection. It got really bad. He started shedding a lot, and he started having dry patches on his skin where like all the hair fell out, and he'd be scratching a lot. It was really bad. And it got really bad to a point where, so when that started happening, I was like, okay, maybe it's the corn in his diet. By the way, not all dogs are allergic to corn, but corn is not good for your dog. So spend the little bit of extra money and make sure your dog food doesn't have corn in it. The cheapest dog foods have corn in it. So when I started seeing this happening, because we feed him twice a day, I started only giving him one dog food meal, and then the other meal was a can of mackerel that had like 600 calories, so it was pretty good. Pretty good amount of calories for his size. He usually was around 80-90 pounds. Pretty big dog. Yeah, so he's shedding really bad, so I started changing things in his diet, and then it got really bad to the point where he was just smelling worse and worse. And then one day he just smelled terrible, and I remember I grabbed his tail by accident, or I think I was looking at where the smell was coming from. I grabbed his tail and it was wet, and I was like, what the hell? And I smelled it, and it smelled like decaying flesh. I was like, oh shit, this is bad. So I left him outside because I had to run, and so when I got back, my mom was home, so I went outside to clean his tail and then put a bunch of Neosporin on it and wrap it up. And so I was cleaning it, there was maggots in the tail, and I was like, holy shit, this is bad. So I got my mom, and she held him down while I literally had to scrub with a toothbrush the maggots out of his tail. And of course it was really painful for him. So I cleaned him up, I put Neosporin all over his tail and wrapped it up, and he recovered in like 2 or 3 days after that. And so after that I'm like, okay, this is getting really serious. I really need to change his diet for real. So I cut out all the dog food meal and started getting him ramen noodles and the mackerel, and then whatever extra meat that I have from what I eat. So he still had a pretty good amount of calories with the changes. And then later on, probably like a week or two after that, that skin infection that he had in his tail that was really bad, which kind of healed up. Well, I mean, it did heal up. It got on like his chest and abdomen. And so it got really weird where he'd have like a layer of liquid, and it smelled really bad, across all his chest and abdomen. So if you see pictures of him with one of my shirts on, that's why, because he would literally, it's almost like when you get a scrape and you know it gets liquidy on the surface. It was kind of like that, but all over his chest and abdomen. It was pretty bad. So when that happened, did the same thing. There were no maggots this time because I was monitoring him much more closely. Same thing. I cleaned him up, covered him in Neosporin, and put a shirt on him and made sure the shirt was tight. And also, I introduced allergy tablets like Benadryl, antihistamines, into his diet. And I introduced more oil into his diet, like olive oil, coconut oil, and egg yolks. So he had a pretty good diet. There was no more dog food. I was giving him extra allergy pills, but still his skin was getting worse. His chest and stuff cleared up a bit, but there was a very, very distinct and gradual degradation of his health and condition. And so I kind of had it in my mind that I knew I had to do this. So I took him to the vet, mostly for the skin. And he was also losing a lot of weight. Even though I was increasing his calories, he was just losing weight. He got pretty skinny. Took him to the vet, just kind of for a second opinion on what to do, because I don't want to kill him early if I didn't have to. But I was 99% sure that I had to. So I was already prepared for that. So I went to the vet, and it's really weird with quarantine. You go to the vet, they just take your dog, and you kind of just text them what you think's wrong with your dog. It's really weird. But the vet calls me, and they weren't even worried about his skin, which is what I was worried about. They're like, "Hey man, we're not even considering his skin. This dog is really fucked. You should probably consider euthanizing at some point soon." And I was like, "Yeah, I figured." It was a difficult decision to make, but it's a decision that has to be made. And so then that day, this was a Tuesday, that day I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just go do it tomorrow. So right after the vet, I went to McDonald's, got him a McDouble and a McChicken and large fries, and I gave it to him. I was pretty happy about that. That day I wasn't going to work out, but I did, because there's no way I was going to work out the next day, because I'd be fucked up. Because this isn't the first time I've had to euthanize a dog. So that day was supposed to be my off day, so I just went to the gym that day. And then when I came back, I was really thinking about what else I can give him to eat for his last day. And so I decided to go to Kroger and get him 3 pizzas, some ice cream from Ben & Jerry's, and try to get him kind of drunk. You know, it's a party, it's a celebration. That should be celebrated, so that's what we were gonna do. And so I also invited some friends over, my close friends, just so they could say goodbye if they wanted to the dog. So also they ate some of the pizza, so he didn't eat the whole pizza. That's why I got so many. That way he can have a variety of flavors, and also my friends can eat whatever's left. So I had the whole thing planned out. That night we got in my truck and hotboxed it with the marijuanas, with the dog in it. I've gotten him high before. He likes it, and I know he has a lot of joint pain, and you know all of that helps you with that. So me and my friends were in the truck, hotboxed it. The dog got high. Every time he gets high in the truck like that, he just doesn't want to get out. I remember a long time ago when I took him camping, I did the same thing. I had my campsite right outside the truck, and I hotboxed that truck with the dog in it, and I was like, okay, I opened the door so he could just walk out, and I was fixing up the campfire, and after a while I'm like, where's my dog? And so when I went, I'm like, I don't think he left the truck. So I went to look at the truck, and he was still in there, and I'd pull him out, and he was just like he just didn't want to move. So I have to drag him out. But then he enjoys it. You could tell there's a visible, you can tell he liked it. So hotbox the truck, come back inside. The pizzas were already ready. While we were hotboxing, I left the pizzas in the oven and came out to pull them out, and then went back to the truck. So everything was ready for him. I tried to give him some Bud Ice. Pretty terrible beer. Pretty shitty. He didn't like it at all. I just ended up giving it to a friend. He didn't like it. I gave him Mike's Hard Lemonade. He didn't drink a lot of it, but he drank some of it. And so then I gave him the pizzas, and he ate way more than I thought he would. I'm sure he was really, because he was really high. I gave him, he literally ate a pizza and a half out of the 3 pizzas, I would say. And then I gave him the whole pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. And that was it. That was the night. It was a good night. I went to sleep. I had an appointment at noon the next day for the euthanasia. And so went to sleep, woke up. Also, when I went to Kroger, my friend went with me, and he bought him some pork ribs. So in the morning when I wake up, I grilled the dog some ribs. I gave it to him as his last meal, and yeah, and that was it. He ate so much. Also, this is another thing that was happening with him. It was getting difficult for him to control his bowels. So he ate so much that he had diarrhea. And so the next day, probably like 2 hours before he went to the appointment, he couldn't control it. He just shit all over the house. So me and my mom had to clean that up. And then once I got everything ready and I ate and I was okay, I'm ready to leave. I got all the dogs with leashes on. Still had like 30 minutes to spend some more time with him before I took him. But then he shit everywhere again. So I was like, shit, there's not gonna be enough time to spend with him now. So I have to clean up his shit everywhere, which I was a little bummed out by, but it was fine. So before I left, I took 1/4 of hit of acid before I went to kill him. I'll talk about that a little later. So I take all the dogs to the car to go to the appointment, and I wanted the other dogs to see what would happen, because I think A, I mean, they have a right to know, and B, I think it makes the grieving process for the dog a lot better. And it's just weird to have a dog and then it just disappears, and then you come back home just grieving, and the dog just like confused, and then he's looking for the other dog, like where's he at? But the dog never comes back. I think it's just so much better for your other dogs, to see what happens, to understand what happens. They know. They're a lot smarter than we usually think they are. Let's get to the appointment. I gotta wear a mask the whole time. It's dumb. I'm in the room with the dog. They're telling me how the process works and what's gonna happen. And I had a really weird request, because when you go to euthanize your dog, you can get their ashes, or they do like a clay paw print that they give you later. I didn't want any of that. I usually don't want to do what normal people do. So I wanted to pull out his fang. And so I told the vet, I was like, hey, can you pull out his fang? And I was gonna leave the dog for communal cremation. Because there's communal cremation and private cremation. Communal cremation, they just take care of the body, you don't get the ashes back. Private, they take care of the body and give you back the ashes. I just wanted to get the fang from him, and that was my token from him. And the vet was like, no, it's really stuck in there, I can't do that. And I was like, because my idea was to take him there, pull out the fang, let them do a communal cremation, and that's it. And he was like, no, I can't. And I was like, well, can I try after we euthanize him to pull it out? And he said, no, that's like post-trauma to the body with some legal issues. And he said, if you want to try that, you have to take him home with you. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just take him with me. Should have listened to that vet. But by accident, it turned out to be a better thing. So if you've never euthanized a dog before, they put a catheter in the arm, and then they inject him with whatever it is they use. And the dog, it just looks like he falls asleep. and then the vet checks his heart rate for a while to make sure it's stopped, and once it's stopped, then you can take him home or leave him there or whatever. So I had the other dogs in the room the whole time while this was happening. So had the dog euthanized. They also release, because all their muscles, relax, including their bladder and bowels. So it's often that your dog urinates and releases his bowels immediately. So that's just something that happens. So the dog was euthanized. I was going to take him home. One of the vet assistants said we can put a bag at the bottom half of his body so that he doesn't leak everywhere. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Keep in mind, I'm just fucked up this whole time. So I put the other dogs in the car. I pay for the euthanization, and then I grab the dog, and of course now the dog's dead. He's just completely limp, and so he's very difficult to handle because it's just completely limp. So I have to really pin him to my core, and so I'm walking out with the dog pinned to me, and everyone saw it. Everyone, you could tell. I'm just trashed emotionally, so I know everyone was looking at me, but I just remember as I was walking out, because the dog's just over, there was a little girl that was waiting outside, and she just saw me with the dog. She knew what was up. Probably a good life lesson for her. So put the dog in the back of the truck in the bed, and I close the bed, and then I drive home, and as I'm driving, of course, I'm just fucked. And so I get home. Keep in mind, I did not plan to bury this dog, but now I have to dig this big ass hole because this dog was big to bury him. So I called my friend. I got a shovel from him. He lives in my neighborhood, and so got to the back and started digging. Well, actually got home and took another pretty big hit of acid before I started digging. Now, if you've never taken acid before, you probably need an explanation. Acid is a very unique drug, you could say. It does not block any pain out. I wasn't taking this drug to cope with the pain of this loss. In fact, it was the very opposite. I was taking the drug to feel the maximum amount of pain from this event, because acid makes you very receptive and perceptive of your environment, of yourself, of everything. So I had it in my mind, if I'm gonna be sad as fuck today, I want to be the saddest that I can be today. I want to go as deep as I can into this. And it was good. It was a good experience. Next time I probably won't do it, because coping with death or dealing with death is on its own a crazy psychedelic. So I pretty much almost didn't feel it. So now I'm in the back and started digging. Keep in mind, this is 2 p.m. Completely sunny, no overcast. It's 100 degrees, and I start digging, and because I had so much work in front of me, I didn't really have time to grieve. It's not ready, so to speak, because I have to do all this first, and then I can grieve. So I start digging. I had a good amount of energy. I just started fresh. And so I had the dog on a table outside, and I had a sunshade on him so he wouldn't be directly in the sun. And so I would dig and dig and dig. And when I started, I had good energy, wasn't grieving at all. I was just focused and committed. And so what I realized as I was getting deeper and deeper into the layers of the earth, so too was I getting deeper and deeper into the layers of my own mind, of my experiences with the dog. And just everything comes up. All the things you've done to him, all the moments you've shared, good and bad, everything just pops up. And so not only is it getting harder physically as I'm getting deeper because I'm getting more tired, the sun's been on me this whole time, so too is it getting harder mentally. So as I'm getting deeper, my grief is also increasing. And so after a while, I haven't had any water because I'm just really trying to dig this hole and get this over with. I really start to feel shitty. I start getting dizzy. I felt my legs and arms start to cramp, and I started getting blisters in my hand. And I was like, oh shit, I need to take a break. So I go inside, I get water, and also I could feel that my skin is burning from the sunburn. I get water, I put on sun lotion, put on a cap, I put on some gloves, and then I go back outside and start digging again. And it takes me like 3 hours to dig this hole, and all in the sun. Just, it was brutal work. It was really difficult. There was moments where I was like, oh shit, I'm really dizzy. I need to get to the where it's shaded with the dog. And I remember I stopped to lean on the table and my heart was just beating really fast. I was like, oh shit, I'm really tired. And so every time I get close to the dog, there's flies on him. So I'd have to like wave them off. And so I got tired of doing that, so I got a fan and put it on the dog. So the dog was constantly having wind on him, so the flies wouldn't get on him. And multiple times I'd dig, I'd be like, holy shit, I'm fucked. I'd go to the table and lay down next to the dog so the fan can hit me as it's hitting him. But I was just back and forth for a while. My hands, I was dehydrated, just exhausted, just covered in dirt because it gets everywhere. And then finally I finished the hole. It was deep enough and long enough to fit him, and I picked him up, and it took me so long to dig this hole that he was stiff. Rigor mortis set in, so he was just really stiff. So I pick him up and I put him next to the hole, and I called the dogs were outside, by the way, with me the whole time, so they could see everything that was happening. I called the other dogs over before I put them in the hole, and I was like, hey, come, this is it. And they just kind of like, they kind of already knew what happened. So I put them in the hole, and keep in mind, by this time, just pure grief, just crying my eyes out the whole time. So I put him in the hole, but he is like this, and so I have to really bend in his legs, fold them in so that he can fit into the hole, because if not, his paws would be too far up because they need to be in deep. So I do that. I fold in his arms, and I put the soil on. And you can't just put the soil back on, you have to compact it as you're doing it. So I put soil on and compact it. I have to step all over him. Well, I have to step all over the dirt on top of him. And as I was stepping on him, because he still has air in his lungs and I'm compressing it, you could hear the air escaping his throat, and it was weird. I forgot to mention earlier, before I even started the hole, because I was going to try to pull his tooth out, I got my knife and I cut the flesh around his canine or fang or whatever that tooth is called, and I got pliers and I really tried to pull it out. It's so hard. Don't try it. I didn't realize a healthy tooth, like your bottom teeth, if they're healthy, are attached to your chin bone. They're in there. So the only way to really get it out is really to just dig, separate all that tissue and more than likely bone. You would literally have to like cleave all of this open before you could pull it out. And also it's really weird, well, I guess it's not, but I didn't think it would bleed that much. As I was cutting his gums, it still bled a lot, so that made it more difficult too. And so yeah, that was taking a while, and so I was like, there's no way I'm gonna pull out this tooth without really mangling his body, so I opted not to. So yeah, and then I started digging the hole. And so now back to where we were, compacting the soil, put the soil on, compact it, put the soil on, compact it, put the soil on, compact it, until I was finally finished and the grave was set. So And now I'm just so exhausted. Now I can finally really feel everything. And I was dehydrated, I was dizzy, I was cramping, I was sunburnt, I was tripping on acid, I had blisters all over my hands, I was drenched in sweat and covered in dirt and just and heartbroken. So there's a lot of things going on here. So finally I finished the grave and I sat down next to it, just fucked up, and that's when I made the post on my Instagram with the hole. And I was just really tired. I just was sitting on his grave, just exhausted. So I really didn't want to get up because I was that tired. So I laid on top of his grave and I just looked at the sky for a while, and all the clouds were moving, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sky. It was so blue and clear, and then it got overcast as I was finishing the grave, and I was like, oh motherfucker, where were you earlier? So it was nice and cool and there wasn't any sun at that point. So after a while, just laying there and just in my mind about me and the dog and everything we've done and all the bad things I did to him, all the things I regret, all the things I'm happy about, just really just diving into my own head of what this dog was to me. After a while of laying there, I'm like, all right, I'm trashed. I need to go inside. So I went back inside, and I had no appetite, but I knew I had to eat because I felt terrible. All I had was a shake that morning, and so it was about 6 hours since I ate anything. And usually I eat every 2 hours. But I had no appetite, but I was like, I need to force myself to eat because I feel just really bad, just all over. Everything hurt, physically and mentally. So I grabbed here's where it gets weird. I grabbed the steak, and it was really weird. It looked like his flesh, and it was making me sick. But I knew I had to eat. So I grabbed steak with some vegetables, I put it in the microwave, and as I was heating up and as I could smell the steak, it smelled like his decaying flesh, which is weird, and it was making me sick. And I was just like, well, I can't do anything about it, I have to eat. So I pulled once it was ready, I pulled it out and began to eat it, and I was cutting into it. And just the whole time as I'm eating it and cutting into it, it just looks just like him. It was weird. For the first half of the steak, because it was a pretty big steak, I just felt sick. But I knew I have to eat. And pretty much a few days after that, all meat looked and smelled like his flesh. It's really strange. I've heard of people going vegetarian after euthanizing a pet, and I can see why now. So I did that. I felt a lot better after I ate. I went to take a shower, and as I showered, like, the water was all brown and mucky because of all the dirt that was just on me. I didn't want to do anything the rest of that day except lay down and just grief. So I took a little bit more of acid, and I started to watch Ad Astra. And if you haven't seen Ad Astra, there's a dynamic between father and son in that movie. It's the main plot of the movie. And so I thought it was fitting to watch that because there's a lot of metaphors in there about that relationship. And that dog to me was like a son. So I figured it would fit well with the day. So I lay down and I'm watching Ad Astra, and I'm really starting to finally have I'm really finally able to grieve. And as I'm grieving, I'm just constantly thinking about this dog and having all these revelations about me and my experiences with the dog and what the dog was to me and what I learned from the dog. And there was a lot of regret because I got him when I was really young. I got him when I was 16 or 17. I was pretty young, so I was a completely different person then. That's 12 years ago. And it comes back up like, oh man, I shouldn't have hit him that time. for this. And I really realized during that movie, I really realized just a lot of things of how important that dog was to me. So I finished watching that movie with all these revelations that I'll tell you about later. My mom comes home, we talk about it, we both cry about it, and that was pretty much the day. That's how that day was. And a weird thing about that day is I didn't want it to end in a weird way. Even though it was a really sad day, I didn't want it to end at all. Like, I was kind of bummed out that I was going to bed, because I guess it's partly because that was the last day I actually saw my dog, and just the amount that I learned in that one day was so great, and it just made me very grateful of everything that happened and everything that I've experienced. Okay, yeah, so now let's get to the revelations and stuff. So, by accident, the process of grief and all of that was so much better this time around than it was when I had euthanized my first dog. The first dog was a huge learning experience, because it was kind of the same thing. She was fine one day, and then the next day I had to euthanize her. Like that. It was crazy. I was like, wow, this was unexpected. And so I didn't get any mementos from her, and we just did a communal cremation. Back then I always regretted, man, I should have got her ashes, man, I should have got her paw print or something. I remember I should have got something from her. And so that's what I was trying to do with this dog. I was trying to get his fang. But now I don't really care about mementos, because for a few reasons. When you do that, even though it's much harder, it really feels like you took care of your dog from beginning to end. It really feels like you did everything you could to make sure that dog had a good life and that he was taken care of. And just the whole ritual process of it is really good for you. Because, I mean, this is where burial originated in primitive man. Well, it originated in agricultural societies, but because we all come from the earth, you put someone back into the earth so they can be reborn again. Not literally reborn again, but so that you could say their energy can be reborn again. And so you just enacting these things, it just makes you feel so much better. So like Wednesday, which was the day I buried him, it was a full grief day, full. The next day was like a half grief day. The next day, which was Friday, was like a 1/4 grief day. And then Saturday I was fine. And I kind of feel guilty about not feeling worse, and that I'm not that sad about it anymore. But that's how you're supposed to feel. When you do everything correct, the whole process from beginning to end, it makes you feel better faster. You understand everything more completely. It all gets put into perspective. But also, a big part is when I euthanized the first dog, I realized a lot of things that when she died, because she died so fast, and which is pretty much how it happens, for some reason I always thought it would be a very slow and gradual death, but it's not like that. When she died, I had a lot of regrets about a lot of things. I regretted not spending more time with her. I regretted being so brutal to her and disciplining. Yeah, mostly the time thing. I wish I spent more time with that dog, the first one. And so after she died, I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to spend more time with this dog and do more things with this dog and give this dog a better experience than just being in the house the whole time. And so that's why I don't feel as bad, because I know me and this dog, we went out, we did things together, we had a good experience together. But there was also moments between that where I'm like, I don't want to take this dog to do this, I just want to go on my own, he's going to be a hassle, I'd rather just do it by myself. There's plenty of times like that where I was like, fuck this dog, I'm going to just leave him at home while I go do this thing. But by accident, I forced myself to take the dog and do things with him. And because I did that, now I feel so much better now that he's passed. And that's not a long time period. That's only 5 years from my last dog to this dog. But it's really, it's odd how quickly you forget things. So when the last dog died, I made myself set certain patterns in behavior to make sure that this dog, when he does pass, I feel much better about. And I set these patterns and forgot why I set them. But now that it's happened again, I look back on how I was, and I'm like, man, good thing I kept those patterns in, because this death would have been so much worse. It would have been just a duplicate of the first one. But you know, that's not long, 5 years, but it's a lot happens. A lot happens in 5 years. So if you're gonna euthanize a dog, bury him. Do the whole process. Seriously, it's so much better for you. So much better for you. And it's just, it's the way it should be done. You can feel that. It's hard to describe until you've experienced it. But cremating your dog doesn't make you feel as good. And I know some people, they don't have space. Maybe they're in an apartment. Maybe they can't bury their dog. If you have the option to bury your dog, do that. So much better. Now we're getting into the really interesting stuff. First, I'm going to talk to you about some dreams that I had, and then the revelations after that. So I had a good feeling that my dog was going to die soon, and I had that feeling because I had some weird dreams, really weird dreams. So we have dreams, and sometimes they're just random as shit, and you don't know what's going on, and you're like, wow, that was wild, that was crazy. But there's some dreams that we have that are like, when you wake up from, you're like, huh, there was something there that I don't really understand, but I know there was something there that was trying to speak to me. And I remember I had this dream back in February. This is June that I had to euthanize my dog. Yeah, like February. And this is kind of the onset of him degrading back in February, January, beginning of the year. So I remember I had this dream where I was looking at a field or something. I was looking at something, and then at the corner of my vision was an owl. It was a really old owl, and for some reason I felt like this owl was a pet of mine. And so I'm looking at this field or whatever, and then I see this owl, and this owl's staring at me, just looking at me. And so I figured, I'm gonna give this owl a hug. And so I give this owl a hug, and as I do that, the owl hugs me back. But the owl hugs me back really hard, as if the owl was needing that hug. As if the owl was really wanting that hug to happen. And I remember that happened, and I woke up and I was like, huh, that was weird. It was old, it was an owl, and it felt like it was a pet of mine. So I was like, huh. Looking back on it now, it makes a lot of sense. Especially when I looked up what owls mean in Native American mythology. Owls are usually represented as, or are usually associated with death in some way. And so I thought that was crazy. And so this was February. I had another weird dream in April. It was 2 dreams. One night, one the next night. And the first one was, I was outside and I was talking to some people, and I look up and there's a meteor coming down and it crashes into the ground. I wasn't hurt, it wasn't near me, the meteor wasn't near anyone else, but I rush over to check it out, and I'm digging into the ground to try to find this meteor, but it's too hot. So I stop, and then I look up and there's 2 wolves approaching me. I'm like, oh shit, there's 2 wolves. but they were pretty chill. But I was still kind of worried, oh, they might attack me. And for some reason, there was like a hanger next to me. There's like a chain link fence with hangers. So I grab a hanger and I open it up, and it's the cardboard tube hanger for your pants. I open it up and I put it around the dog's or the wolf's neck, and he's just chill. And so I'm like, oh, he's chill. I don't gotta worry about him. So I take it back off and I dig in to the earth to find the meteor. And I find it, and it's like a little 2x1 black square or black rectangle. And then I wake up. And I was like, oh, that was really weird. I usually keep audio diaries of really weird dreams that I have that I think mean things. And so far, it's some pretty good stuff. That was one night. The next night, this is in quarantine, by the way, and in Houston we were supposed to have a flyover of some World War II planes, or World War II planes. And so I was having a dream that it was the flyover of those planes, but some of them were really old. And so, or some of them were just really jacked up, so they have malfunctions in the sky and they come and crash into the ground. And then I go to check out the wreck, but there was like a government agent, and he said, like, hey, no, don't come, so I just didn't check it out. But I could see that the dude in there was dead. And that was the next night. So now I had two crashing dreams back to back. Really weird. It's one thing to have a weird dream one day, but to have a dream with the same theme 2 nights in a row, that's something. And those 3 dreams I can see now that were about my dog. The crashing dream and the owl. And it's just really interesting that in some subconscious way I kind of knew what was going to happen long before it happened. Alright, now to the big revelations and stuff. This is where it gets deep. So, if you've... I'm going to say I now because I'm probably only going to watch these videos. If I remember correctly, that happiness video when I kind of had like a spiritual awakening, after that I really reassessed relationships with my mom and my friends and with myself and my exes and just everything. I was recalibrating myself with all of that. And for some reason, I never re-examined my relationship with that dog. And I'm not sure why now. I think I was just too engaged with the other people in my life to think about him. And also, for some reason, like, I had a set view of who that dog was and what he was to me in my head, that I was just like, oh, this is what this dog is, whatever. But that's a problem that I should have re-examined, because I would have had such a greater appreciation for that dog, which is not that I didn't, but so much greater when he was still alive, rather than figuring all that out after he passed. And so with this dog, I made some really big discoveries on who he was and what he was to me. And I did not really understand how big of an influence he had on my life until now that he's gone. And so when I got him, he was different. He was very unique. He was a weird dog. And when I got him back when I was 16, 17, I remember telling my mom that I didn't want him because he just wouldn't listen. He was difficult to work with. He would cry for everything. I thought the dog was weak and cowardly and dumb. This is what I thought of the dog. And for some reason, those things kind of always stuck with me, that impression of who he was. And so, as I was raising him, I was trying to make him stronger, and harder, and just a better dog. A better dog, a type of dog. I was trying to morph him into a type of dog that I wanted him to be. and I totally forgot that we cut off his balls when he was 3, because he was just fucking shit up, destroying property. And I realized, holy shit, this dog has gone his whole life without testosterone in his body. That is crazy. I take testosterone cycles, right? Steroids. So I have there's periods of my life where there's a lot of testosterone, and shortly after the cycle there's periods where it's pretty low, and then I go back to normal. So I know what high testosterone is like, I know what normal testosterone is like, and I know what really low testosterone is like. And when you're low testosterone, everything sucks. You are not good physically or physiologically or psychologically. And to think that this dog went his whole life with 0 testosterone basically is pretty amazing. And there was a lot of periods in his life where I thought he was gonna die soon, because his health was just deteriorating. But his health would be bad, and then he would be back up, and we're like, oh, okay, he's just not gonna die. So he would kind of yo-yo with his health, and I wasn't sure why. I wasn't sure what was causing that. But now I realize it was multiple things. It was his sheer will to live. Like, when he got that skin infection, if he wanted to die, he could have, because there was so many health complications. But he would not let go. He just did not want to die. And also when we got Tequila, the Weimaraner, and the pug, I think he really loved them to the point of wanting to stay here to continue to be with them. And also, German Shepherds are weird. They usually imprint on one person, meaning they generally just get attached to one person, and they're kind of like set with them for life. So he imprinted on me, and I think there was always this dynamic of him always wanting to be here for me and wanting, in a way, to prove himself to me that he was a good dog, that he did have the qualities that I wanted in him. And I remember not wanting him because of his faults, you could say, and because my mom wouldn't give him away because the past owner was just really bad to him. He would neglect him, and whenever the dog would even want attention, the past owner would just hit him. And so she really felt bad for the dog and wanted to keep him. And then I was an asshole to him too when I was young. So that dog had a pretty hard life. I think I was just extra hard on him because he was a male. And so yeah, now that he has passed, I realized just, wow, how tough this dog was. How mentally just how much grit, just mental grit he had, because he would not let go. He was so tough. Now that I really think about it, such a fucking hard dog, such a hard dog. And he was hard. Like, I wanted him to be like tough and like this certain dog that I always wanted, but he just wasn't it. He was never it. He was never that dog that I wanted. And now I'm realizing he was that dog that I wanted. He was it. He just was it in his own way, which is also just completely admirable. And I find myself being really inspired and grateful to have this dog in my life, and for my mom to be the way that she was back then. Because if it were up to me, I would have just been like, oh, fuck this dog, get him out of here. We gotten rid of him. And so it's just crazy. I think that the dynamic between me and him was, I always wanted to feel proud of him, but I never did. I never could. And I think he kind of knew that. And so, in a weird way, he was trying to make me proud of him in his own way. But I could never see it. And so now that he has passed, that's the big revelation. Like, wow, now I'm actually proud of that dog. Like now I see all the things that he did, just all of it in totality. I'm just really just blown away of the type of dog that I had that I didn't realize I had. And I was always trying to be, I was always a certain teacher to this dog. I was always trying to teach him how to be and how to act, and you know, I was raising him a certain way, to be a certain way. And then in the end, he became the biggest, one of the greatest teachers I've ever had. But now, and now I realize it. There's just a whole lot of things going on. And because of that dog, because he was a male, so I treated him differently than I would a female dog. That dog has acted as like a buffer for me. So if I ever have a son, I will not make the same mistakes with that son that I did with this dog, because I've seen the errors in the way that I've done things, and I've learned from them. And it was all because of that dog. And once you see the stuff that I'm working on, I think the influence of that dog just really is just gonna pop out. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Yeah, so pretty good story, huh? There's a lot there. There's a lot there that I learned, and I'm very grateful for this experience. And in a weird way, I'm not sad at all. I'm just really happy that I was able to be part of this. And it's really weird. It's like reading a book that takes you 12 years to read, and then when you kill your dog, you read the last line on the book. And so you close the book and you're like, holy shit, that was an amazing book. And then the book disappears. And you can't reread it. You only have the memory of what you read in that book. It really puts everything into perspective by force, without whether you want to or not. And if I was fucking around, if I was not taking care of my shit, this would have been like a huge slap in the face. That everything is temporary. All of it. It ends. And when it ends so much faster than you think. So much faster than you think. Before you know it, you're on your own deathbed and you're just like, fuck, I did not do this. I should have done this. I should have been more friendly to this person. I should apologize to this person. If you live the wrong way, these things are going to happen. And so, in a weird way, I can't wait to kill the next two. Yeah, so I think I've talked enough. It was a great experience. I'm just really grateful for everything. And hopefully someone somewhere listens to this and takes some piece of advice from it, or not, or you can learn the hard way. That's always good too. So it's taken me a while to figure out what I wanted to do with my dog's grave. Like, I didn't know, I wasn't sure if to do like stones or like a headstone or something to indicate where he was buried. And I thought about it and I'm like, well, I don't really want a rock in the ground that says like, hey, your dead dog's here. There's not enough meaning there for me. And oftentimes, this is just the way I am, I really don't like doing what other people do. It's just not how I've functioned. So I was thinking about it and I was like, what if we do a tree? So I decided on an avocado tree. And so I planted it on top of his grave, and hopefully within the year it starts producing avocados. And so now that has meaning. It's physically and metaphorically. So this tree is literally drawing energy from my dog's body to help the tree nourish itself so it can grow. It's literally feeding off of my dog's body. And eventually it's going to produce fruit. Do you even call an avocado a fruit? I don't know. It's going to produce avocados, and I'll get one and I'll eat it, and then that avocado is gonna nourish my body. So we're having, you know, the whole energy system in effect here, and there's just a lot of layers there. This is also where, like, it doesn't really make sense, but when, especially in Christian tradition, like they give you the wafer, and that's the body of Christ, and then you drink the wine, and that's the blood of Christ. Technically, in a way, the avocado that I'm eating is the body of my dog, like the body of Christ. There's that metaphor there, and I didn't really understand that metaphor until this. It's like, why do they call it that? But yeah, and so like now, to me, the avocado is a sacred food. Just to me, not to everyone else. Because there's always going to be, no matter where I go in the world and eat an avocado, it doesn't have to be the one from this tree. There's always a reference in me eating the avocado to my dog. Always. So there's always, in a simple little avocado, I'm always going to dig into my own memories of my dog, even if it's like 20 years into the future and I've kind of forgotten all of this. There's always that really underlying subconscious image that's always there. And I realized that's also why ritual is important, because ritual, the way the avocado is a reference to my dog, ritual is a reference to the divine, and they have, you know, certain symbols and practices that are always a reference to that. But those things get lost in time, and we don't really understand those things now because it's really hard to. It's like, if you've eaten an avocado, you're not thinking about my dead dog. There's no way. Only I do that. So in a way, I've created my own ritual every time I see an avocado or eat one, by, I guess you could say, attaching the image into what my experiences with this dog was. So yeah, it's big stuff. There's a lot of layers there that I'm not going to dissect now, that you can draw for yourself, because right now I'm dieting and I'm pretty dumb, and there's just no way I could think that far into something like this right now anyway. So yeah, I think now that's a good ending to this video. And so I already have, I don't know if I said this in other parts, but I already got trees picked out for my other dogs. Like, this is gonna be a apple tree, a lemon tree. It's all, I kind of figured out how to go forward with things like this just by accident. That's kind of how it usually works out for me. I learn shit the hard way, and then like, oh, okay, I shouldn't do that again. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that story. If not, you probably didn't see the whole thing. But future Patrick, hey Patrick, whenever you see this again, you'll be like, this shit was good. I'm glad I made that video. Alright, see ya.